So let me, before I forget. Um, okay, we'll get started in a couple more minutes here. All about lights. Hi, Rob from Delaware, Georgia. Let me know where you're from in the chat if you haven't mentioned that yet. It's always fun to see where everybody's calling from. We will get started very, very shortly. And I'm gonna make this call, I'm gonna make this very practical for you guys. Um, I know it can be a confusing topic for a lot of people, and that's why I wanted to go ahead and do this. Um, oh yeah, someone suggested people may need to know how to mute themselves. So I don't actually, if you're on your phone, I'm not sure where it would be, but if you're on your computer, on mine, it's at the bottom left-hand corner of the screen. There's an audio. You'll see an audio button, and if you just click on it, it'll mute, and you'll see a little red line. So thank you for your cooperation here. See someone from and same on. Thank you for confirming. Same on the phone as well. So just click the audio button. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Boston. I'm actually going to Boston on Wednesday for work. So I'll be there for 3 days. So let's go ahead and get started. So the way I'm going to operate this call, let me make sure I have my view here. Okay. Um, what we're going to talk about today is grow lights, and I'm going to make it very, very practical. If you want to, I will leave time for questions at the end. But you're welcome to write any questions along in the chat. If you need something clarified right away, if I said something and you want it clarified, just so we can streamline the beginning part of the call, feel free to type in any questions in the chat, and I'll periodically check and clarify any questions for you as I go along. But like I said, today's topic is on grow lights. This will be about an hour or so. And I have a special announcement at the end as well. So I've gotten tons of questions for grow lights, and we're at the time of the year where, we have shorter days for many of us, unless you live by the equator. If you're in the northern hemisphere, now, we're in the fall. The days are getting shorter. It's sad for humans and sad for plants as well, due to less light. And so I've gotten a lot of requests and questions about grow lights. So here we are. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to put something in the chat now before I forget. I actually just published a blog post. Oh, I had it up and now I don't anymore. So just bear with me here. I published a blog post on grow lights. So everything that I'm talking about today, I have it in the blog post as a reference. So I'm going to place that um, in a second here. And of course, here we go. Of course, when you need it, it's a little bit slow. Okay, so here's the URL. I'm just going to put it in the chat. Um, so I encourage everybody to listen. So don't read through the blog post because I'm going to touch on all those points. So just listen for now because I really believe that if you listen and then later on, then you read, so you have multiple touch points, you absorb it much better. So that's why I like to do all these different formats. And then also I want to mention if you're not subscribed to my newsletter, so if you want to click on that link just to have it open so you have it for later. If you scroll a little bit, you'll see where you can sign up for my Orchid newsletter, and you'll be placed on that newsletter list, and you'll get information usually weekly, and sometimes I'll have special announcements. So if you want to do that, go ahead and subscribe there. So let's talk about grow lights. So quick question here, and you can either give me a thumbs up or maybe mention it in the chat. Has anybody, and I wanted to talk about this because I've seen it a lot. Does anybody have these grow lights or have seen them in photos? Those purple grow lights. Does that,
Oh, hate them.
yes, I'm glad. Was that Laura? I'm glad you
Yeah,
said
hate
that
them.
too. Excuse me, there's nothing, sorry. There is nothing wrong with them for the plants because I want to explain what they are, but then I'll talk about what I recommend, and I'm going to make it super, super, super easy for you to be confident with grow lights. So, does anybody know why they're purple?
Ultraviolet.
Okay, yeah. So basically, so if we are to go back to, so you don't have to be a physicist to understand this. So I'm going to explain it in very simple terms. I have a science background. But I kind of figured out a way so that it's easy to explain. So everybody's played with prisms before, I assume, at least when you were a child, right?
Yes.
Prisms, yep. So as you know, I'm sure everybody knows that when you pass light or white light, sunlight through a prism, you get the whole spectrum in the rainbow, right? You get all the colors in the rainbow. So the purple lights are actually basically only the red wavelength and blue wavelength. So those are the two most important color of lights that your plants need. So the red is more for flowering and the blue is more for vegetative growth. And so you're essentially the thought behind it is that you're only giving the plant the wavelengths of light in the spectrum that the plants actually need. However, yes, they are good for the light. However, I think they're really ugly.
Me too.
No, they just don't look right. I don't want to look at purple plants. I want to look at plants how they're meant to be, how they're meant to be seen. But anyway, I wanted to just quickly explain why the purple lights exist. You don't need them. And if you don't quite like the look of them, then don't use them. You don't need to use them. So what I recommend, there are so many different types, but these are some of the guidelines that I like to use. So, um, full spectrum. Now, basically everything is LED lights now, so that's great. It's great for our electric bill because it uses less energy. So if you're looking for a good grow light, and I have in the article, I have a link to my Amazon shop that has the ones that I like, and they're by all means not the only ones, but I'm going to describe the general criteria. So if you see some on there that you don't, you want to look for something a little bit different, this is what I would recommend. I would recommend a white, don't go to the purple ones. Just get a white full spectrum grow light. So full spectrum basically means all the colors of the rainbow, right? It'll appear white, right? White light has all the colors in the rainbow. Now, another thing that you'll find when you're picking out grow lights, a lot of times you'll see the color temperature. So you'll see something like 4000 K or 6500 K or 3000 K. So what is that? So that's just it's called the color temperature. And so what I recommend is to find a grow light that has this is for orchids. It works particularly well for orchids. 4000 K or Kelvin, that's what that stands for. And basically it means that it skews a little bit to the red end of the spectrum, which is great for flowering. However, it's a good balance between the two. Remember the purple light, it has the red and blue. So this is a good balance between the two for orchids. So white light, white full spectrum, make sure you get full spectrum, and then choose one that is around 4000 K. It doesn't have to be exact. Can you grow, with a 6500 color temperature full spectrum light? Of course you can. Yes, you can. But another part, and this is what'll make it really easy. You don't have to do this, but I'm just telling you a way to quantify it. And I know some people on this call are in my course. This should look familiar.
Look,
I see, yeah, I see Laura. and Rob nodding their heads here. So this is a
That's
light.
our old one.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's there's a lot of different varieties, but this one still works. I'm gonna unblur my background because it's messing things up a little bit here. This is really inexpensive. It's in my blog post. You'll see the link for this if you want to grab one. Now, the reason I like this light meter is that regardless of what grow light you have, so I have some guidelines in terms of what kind of light intensity. You all know that, and if you follow me closely on Instagram, on my blog posts, I'm constantly talking about light, right? And how important light is for growth and how important light is particularly for blooming. And in most cases, yes, a drop in temperature at night can help some of your Phalaenopsis grow a brand new flower spike. But for the most part, light is the most important factor in getting your orchids to bloom. So with this meter, what it allows you to do is measure either the foot candles or the lux. They're just two different units. I go by foot candles. So what I recommend is for whatever grow light you have, whether it's any of the ones on my list, or if you find any other grow lights that you want to use, again, full spectrum, make sure it's full spectrum, white LED grow lights, and I recommend 4000K color temperature. All you have to do is open this up here and take a reading, a foot candle reading, which measures the intensity of the light right where your leaves are. And let's say the grow light is up here. So you want it pointing at the grow light, and at the level, you want to hold this at the level of the leaves. I recommend at least 600 to 700 foot candles of light for your Phalaenopsis orchids in order to grow and to bloom well. If you go higher, that's totally fine. That's totally fine. I've got some good questions here. I will talk about, James was asking at the end, yes, and remind me if I forget, James. He's talking about things like rice water, coffee, banana peel concoctions, all that. I'll comment on that at the end. Please remind me, James, if I forget. Someone else is asking here, how do you pronounce, I don't want to butcher your name. Is it G? I apologize if I'm not pronouncing your name right.
It's Gia.
Gia.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gia. Gia is asking, is 5,000 close enough or less good? That's fine. That's totally fine. It might be a little bit less. So basically it'll be a little bit less. It'll be skewed more towards the blue end of the spectrum and away from the red. So it'll be a little bit less good as far as flowering goes, but it's totally fine. I don't want to I don't want to encourage everybody to to nitpick too much because it's part of it's science and part of it's an art, and you just learn by doing things. So learn, that's totally fine, absolutely totally fine. And in fact, I'm glad you mentioned that. I'll come back to your diffused portion there, the 5,000K. I'll come back to that shortly. An interesting part. So have you ever noticed, for example, in the morning, if you have, a beautiful sunrise, or maybe in the evening, where the sky seems a little bit more reddish or orange? So really that's more towards the lower end of the color temperature. So even natural light will vary in the color temperature throughout the day and throughout the seasons. So to answer your question, 5,000K is totally fine. If that's what you have, use it. It's totally fine. There's pros and cons. You don't want to overthink it too much. So Laura, I said 600 to 700. If
100, okay.
If I just said 6 or 7, I'm sorry, that was wrong.
Okay,
That was a huge lie. I'm sorry.
Okay, very confused. Okay.
I'm sorry. Yes, 600 to 700.
Okay.
Now, you'll see in a lot of literature, if you Google it, if you go to the American Orchid Society, you'll see a standard recommendation of 1,000 foot candles for Phalaenopsis orchids. And that's great. If you can get 1,000 foot candles, that's wonderful. But you don't even need quite that much. So the reason that I say that also, and the reason that I like grow lights is that they can provide a lot more light too than you'd think. Because if you think about our natural light, and I live in Ohio, so our fall and our winter, I mean, they're dark, they're dingy, they're depressing. But I can even get orchids to bloom in natural light without the use of grow lights. Grow lights will greatly benefit you, but they're not absolutely necessary, but they can be a great help. However, even where I live, the light's going to fluctuate. Natural light fluctuates. And so unless I get direct sun, let's say, my eastern facing window, I can even get, 1,500, 2,000 foot candles or more for short periods of time. But most of the day, it could be even, a couple 100 foot candles or less, and they still bloom. So that's why, I'm saying if you can consistently get 600 to 700 foot candles of light with your grow lights, and you can use your light meter, you're golden. It's really that simple. Um, so yes, 600 to 700. Now Gia mentioned, does 5,000 K need to be diffused? So do you have this grow light already, Gia, that you're talking about?
I just bought it and I did not put it together because I wanted to listen to this first.
Yeah, yeah. So what kind of configure is it? Do you know if is it a frosted lens, or is it like, do you have it with you by any chance?
No, basically it's called the Barina T5
Oh,
LED, the full spectrum 5,000K grow lights. They're strips. And what I was gonna
okay.
do is put them on the top, but my kind of quick question, and you can,
Yeah.
whatever you want, but, I was gonna do it in the fall, winter until the spikes form and then bring them back upstairs. So whatever you think of.
Yeah. I mean, you can definitely Barina's amazing. In fact, one of the ones that I have, I actually just not that long ago set up. It's You'll see it in the blog post. So I have they're actually shop lights. They're not the strips, but they call them shop lights, but they're only about this wide, and
Mhm.
mine are 4 feet long. Barina's wonderful. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely wonderful. And the ones that I have there's a covering on them, and they have frosted coverings um, on the lighting elements. And so it diffuses the light. It diffuses the light a little bit more, but the one that you have should be totally fine. After they spike, you can absolutely move them. Because what you'll find for Phalaenopsis too, depending on how far you have your plants from the lights,
Mhm.
the flower spike you know, uh, it may
Grow
grow.
past the light.
Yeah. And so you may have to move it, either turn
Yep.
it or, put it somewhere else. But yeah, you can definitely do that. Absolutely. Um, Todd is asking, thank you. I was gonna get to that, but then I forgot. How long? So if whether you're using, I'll put it this way. If you're just using the grow lights strictly to grow your plants only under grow lights, and no natural light or very little, I would recommend to have them on for 12 to 14 hours a day. And also to make it easy, and again, all of this is in the blog post. Um, to make it easy, I also like to plug it into a timer,
Yeah.
because you don't want that headache. I don't. You want to. If it's not easy, I'm not going to do it. At least I know myself. I'm not gonna remember to go turn it on. I just want to be consistent. So what I use, and I have a picture of it in the blog post with the link if you want to use the same one. The one I really love, it's actually a surge protector, and it's got a built-in timer to it, and it's got eight total plugs. and on one side it says always on. So you can plug in any other lamps or whatever you have, anything that you need to plug in, your phone chargers or whatever. And then it has four plugs that are actually tied to the timer. And so you can set it from, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. or whatever, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., whatever you choose. It makes it really easy. And I would do it for at least 12 hours. You don't really need to go above that, but 12 to 14 hours a day is a good time period to have the grow lights on. And yeah, even Herman saying combination natural and grow light. Herman leaves the lights on, grow lights on for 12 hours. That's perfect. That's absolutely perfect. Even if you have natural light as well. Even if you're just supplementing natural light, I would just stick with 12 hours. It's just an easy way. And your plants will thank you. They will thank you. Um, Let me see now. Any questions on what I've talked about so far before we move forward to some other topics? Diffuse, like, can you describe? You can unmute yourself, Gia. What do you mean by diffuse light?
I read somewhere, and I'm new to this, so I wasn't sure. I read that when I put the strip lights on top, I should put a thin 6 mil layer of greenhouse plastic over the light, not like, and that was my other question. Is it gonna, somebody said, oh, it'll set on fire. And I'm like, well, it's LED. And it wouldn't be right up against it, I don't think, but they said that I should have that plastic to diffuse the light, but I didn't know what you think or what I should do.
So the hang on one second here. Um, Do you do you have a link that you can maybe post in the chat of the exact one that you have?
Of the light?
Yeah, of the light that you have, if you can maybe find that, and then while you're looking for that, I can comment on it. Uh,
Sure.
Thank you. So the Barina strips that you'll see in my blog post, the 4 foot lights, those are actually frosted. They're considered, they have a frosting over the lens. And basically what that does, and it's basically diffusing, it's basically doing what you're saying, Gia. It's diffusing the light. And so what it allows, it basically just distribute. You don't have to, so you don't have to modify your light strips. I think you'll be totally fine. I wouldn't really worry about that. For you, okay, I see let me just check it out real quick here. Uh,
Thank you.
you're welcome. Um, Full spectrum, 8 pack. Yep, everything you said, the 5000K. I'm just gonna quickly scan this. Yeah, I think, okay, hang on one second. Yeah, I wouldn't worry. I wouldn't worry about it. I think you'll be fine. Um, you'll be fine. I wouldn't even bother, with adding something else to diffuse it. Really, all that does, if you have like the Barina light strips that I have in the blog post that have the frosted lenses, and it has like a plastic over it as a part of the unit, it comes that way. It just provides more evenly distributed
Mm.
lighting. That's all. Sometimes, if you have a really powerful grow light, you might notice that it could cause a little bit of mottling in the leaves, so a little bit of uneven leaf color. So really, but it's more of a cosmetic thing. It's not. I don't think you'll have the issue with your grow light. I would just say go ahead and use those. You-
Thank you.
You're welcome. You should just be totally fine. Um, Herman, is there a danger of burning the leaves? Yes, that's a great question. So depend, and unfortunately, my answer is not going to be black and white. However, it is. I'll comment on that. It is something to be aware of. Um, you can burn any plant, even plants that like a lot of direct sun, which Phalaenopsis orchids do not, but they can take a little bit of direct sun indoors. I'm sure many of you hear me talk about eastern facing windows, and yes, they can take some direct sun indoors, especially morning sun because it's more gentle. Now, if you go suddenly from a low light situation to suddenly under really strong grow light, you could, or in a window that has a ton of direct sun, even midday direct sun when it's the strongest, you could very well burn your leaves. So if you're not sure, if you wanna exercise caution, um, but honestly, I'll say this. If you have a light meter and you measure where your orchid is growing and it's 600 to 700, I would be shocked if any of your plants would burn, regardless what plants you have. If you want to up the light intensity later and maybe bring them, because if you bring them closer to the actual light elements, you'll have, it'll read higher in foot candles, right? So the further you get away from the light, obviously it'll be less light, and if you go higher, it'll be more light. But if you stick with this kind of this rule of thumb, 600 to 700 foot candles, regardless where your plant was previously, you shouldn't have any issue of burning. And then, if you eventually want to increase it, I would leave it, at that light intensity for, a couple weeks. And then if you want to increase it, then you can. So anytime you increase light, you want to do it slowly. But I mean, in a lot of cases, you won't have any issue. It's just when you have the extremes is really when you run into an issue with burning. Does that help answer that question? Um, Herman is asking about regular bulb style grow lights. You can definitely use those too. So if you just have a regular, a light fixture, or a lamp that has an arm, that I don't even know what you call them, just like a floor lamp, right, with a regular light bulb. You can always replace them, as long as you get the right style that actually will screw in, and pay attention to the electrical, requirements on the lamp, not to exceed a certain number of watts, then you can always add LED grow lights. And I have in my Amazon link, in the shop, there's an example of the bulbs that you can just screw in that are grow light. You can replace all the bulbs in your house to grow lights if you want, to the LED grow lights. Laura's asking, what does a sunburn look like?
Artificial light burn look like.
Oh, I mean, it's going to look the same regardless whether it's done, whether it occurs from the sun outside, or in a window, or from a grow light. Typically, and it'll happen usually pretty quickly. So you'll kind of see a bleached out area. Let me see if I can find. I have a blog post um, on Sun Scald. Let me bring that up. I'll put it in the chat for you to see, because I do have some pictures in there that you can reference. Okay. Just give me a moment here. So like I said, here we go. Just a little bit slow here. Okay, I just put it there in the chat. So you can see, let me see. I have some pictures. Okay. Okay, so that actually, what I have on that blog post is actually not even extreme sunburn. I have another. I posted a video once that shows what sunburn looks like. But basically, the top of the leaf will kind of turn bleached out a little bit.
So it's not red.
It can occur pretty quickly. And then it might turn, it might have like a patch that'll turn yellow, and maybe eventually brown, and dry up. But it can occur in extreme cases, it can even occur in a matter of hours. So if you've ever put your plants outside, let's say any of your house plants that have been indoors, and then you suddenly put them outside in full sun without acclimating them slowly, they will burn in a matter of hours really quickly.
Okay. All right.
Um, so, so something to consider. Just anytime you increase light, go slow. Do it a little bit at a time. Wait a few days and then increase it. Increase it from there. Crystal says, I have 0 east or west facing windows, so I get very little natural light. I have one orchid my kids gave me. I already had root rot that I have fixed and repotted it. Now I am wondering if I need a grow light. It is okay, so it's currently in a south facing window. Where do you live, Crystal? Can I ask you where you live? You can unmute yourself too, or just comment in the chat. Um, so southern facing windows. Oh, okay, she's in Crystal's in Indiana. So right next to me in Ohio. So you should be, is it right in front of the window? Like immediately in front of that south facing window? Okay. And if that should be totally fine. How long has it been there? For 2 weeks. Okay. And I assume it's getting a little bit of direct sun now, right? A little. Okay. You should be totally fine. I mean, you can supplement. You can supplement with a grow light. The tips are turning red. Oh, the burn. Okay, that was okay. I'll come back to that, Laura. So that's actually something different. So Crystal, I don't think it. Do you have any obstructions outside of the window, like any trees or anything blocking the light? Okay, you don't have. You can get a grow light if you want, but you don't have to. Southern facing window where you live is totally fine. I have a couple orchids. So my kitchen actually faces south. There's no obstructions. And starting in late summer, early fall, because the sun is a little bit lower in the sky, so that's when I get some actual direct sun in those windows. In the summer, I don't. It's still pretty bright. It's great for the orchids, but I don't actually get direct sun until about this time of year and then through the winter. But yeah, you should totally be fine. You don't need any supplemental lighting in that particular location that you have your orchid there. So Laura was saying some of the leaf tips. You're welcome, Crystal. Some of her leaf tips are turning red. So if anybody ever has any orchids, any Phalaenopsis orchids, and it happens in a lot of other plants as well, where the edges of the leaves will kind of be like a reddish tinge. All that means is that the light is on the top end of what the plant is tolerating.
Okay.
And I forgot, I wouldn't be pronouncing the compound correctly, but there's a compound that the plant has that it's basically protecting itself from UV rays from the sun.
Okay.
And if anybody has any Christmas cactus, like a Christmas cactus plant or a Thanksgiving cactus that's turned reddish or purplish, it's the same idea. It's not sunburn. And in fact, if you take those plants that turn reddish, that have suddenly or slowly turned reddish, that you have them in maybe some direct sun or a lot of direct sun, and you move them to a location that has less light, they'll actually turn green again. But
Okay.
sunburn, on the other hand, once you have sunburn, it's not going to go. You can't reverse it, unfortunately.
Okay.
Yeah. And so
Thank you.
you're welcome. A lot of people ask me, well, what do I do? I mean, my plant's ugly now. And everybody automatically wants to cut the leaves off. And I tell them, don't do it. Because the plant is still going to be able to use them, and especially for Phalaenopsis orchids, they may only grow 1 or 2 leaves a year, right? They're not very fast-growing plants. Orchids in general, I mean, that's just one kind of orchid. There's thousands and thousands of them, but orchids in general do not grow quickly. So as long as if you have sunburn, as long as it didn't get mushy, the sunburn area, because sometimes what will happen is the sunburned area might get infected, and so you might get more discoloration and might get mushy, and in that case, you'll want to maybe cut the leaves off or treat it. But if you can stand it, if the sunburn is still, on the leaf is still.
Good luck Wednesday.
I'm sorry.
I hope it goes well.
My guess is
So
at best.
I would just recommend leaving the plants because eventually they're going to grow new leaves and it'll cover up the sunburned leaves.
Okay.
Because you could be setting if you cut off a lot of the leaves, you'll be setting the plant's growth back. So if you can stick through, the disfiguration, I would recommend that you do because it'll be better. It'll be better for the plant. Oh, so yeah, you're welcome, Kath. So you don't have to move them. There's nothing wrong if your Christmas cactus is purplish or reddish. It's totally fine. It's not damaging the plant. So unless you prefer it greener, and you may also not want to move it because it can also cause bud drops sometimes if you change the environment too drastically while a plant is in bud or it's blooming.
Yep.
Beach.
Okay. Christine has another question. Okay, I have a red tip along the length of the leaf, so it's good to know I can remedy it. But my phals also have yellowing leaves. Are these issues related? They can be. They can be. I actually have a blog post on yellowing orchid leaves. Usually, so yellowing leaves can come from so many different things. But typically, if they're the oldest leaves, so meaning the bottom leaves, and let's say you have a yellow leaf at the bottom, and all the other leaves look fine. They're not wrinkled. They're healthy looking. Eventually the oldest leaves will turn yellow and they'll go away. It's just aged out. So no leaf will last forever. However, if you haven't been watering well, or have a good watering process, or if you've let your plants get dehydrated and dry out a lot, then yes, that can actually be caused from dehydration, from your watering practices. So Christine, if you can, feel free to send me a message wherever you follow me, or if you have my email. I'm going to put my email here. Feel free to email me questions. Your photos, I should say, of your plants. Yeah, because it could be due to a lot of different things. And Christine also says, I thought it was a good idea to let phals dry out before watering. And oh, my dog is chewing a piece of paper. I think it's okay. All right, sorry about that. So yes, it is good to let the roots dry out, but Phalaenopsis do not like to stay dried out for a long period of time. So yes, let them dry out, but as soon as they're dry, go ahead and water. So if you have your Phalaenopsis orchids in clear plastic pots, it's easy to see because and I'm sure this may not be new if you've been following me for a long time, or if you're in my course, you know that Phalaenopsis roots that are hydrated will appear green through the clear pots. When they're dry, they'll be a silvery color. So as soon as they're silver or mostly silver, go ahead and water. That's what I recommend. Because if you let them stay dry for a long period of time, then you're going to run into issues and you're going to get wrinkly leaves. You're going to get, yellow leaves starting to happen. But all that stuff also can happen if you let your roots rot. So if your plants stay wet for extended periods of time, the roots are going to rot and you'll see the same thing. So that's why, it can be confusing. It can be confusing because wrinkly leaves and yellow leaves can happen because of two things on the opposite ends of the spectrum. So it's up to you to use your visual cues and knowing your routine to say, oh, did I not water this for a few weeks? Or on the other end, is it sitting, in a far corner in a dark corner where it barely gets enough light and it's in a pot of sphagnum moss, which absorbs a lot of water and takes forever to dry out? Then, maybe your roots rotted at that point. So everything's related. Everything's related. And back to grow lights, another really important part for the grow lights is what will happen, and you can comment in the chat or unmute yourself. What happens, what will you have to adjust if you increase the amount of light?
More water.
More water, yes. So your plants will dry out faster if you add more light. So be aware of that. Be aware of that. Someone says in the chat, I switched two orchids to terracotta pots to follow your preferred method, but now I have no idea when to water because I don't see the roots. So again, it's I'll clarify a little bit. The reason I recommend terracotta pots and sphagnum is because so many people are terrified of sphagnum moss. It's actually a really good medium.
I'm switching mine over.
What's that?
I said I think next year I'm switching to sphagnum moss. You don't have to water as much, and they seem to grow better.
Yeah. And if you switch any of your orchids to a new medium, I would recommend switching just one or two.
Okay.
Live with it for a little bit, just to make sure that you like it. You don't want to risk your whole collection, but you just have to learn and get used to it. So if you have let's say sphagnum moss in a clear plastic pot or just plastic pot period with no hole, just a solid plastic pot with just holes at the bottom for drainage, you can't see the roots. Plastic doesn't breathe, so it'll be a little harder to know. You can't see the color of the roots as a cue to tell you when to water, but you're going to learn over time. It's not that hard. So what I like to do for sphagnum moss is you can feel the top. Wait until the top feels dry to the touch. If you can stick your finger a couple inches down, if you can, go ahead and do it. Once it's dry, water it. Now, with terracotta, the reason I like terracotta and sphagnum is because the terracotta it breathes. And so it allows the sphagnum moss to dry out in a reasonable amount of time. So as soon as the surface feels dry, go ahead and water. Don't be too afraid of. A lot of people are so afraid of this overwatering, which is a term that I really can't stand because it makes people scared to water properly. What you should be scared of is not providing enough light. If you provide enough light, everything will work better. So usually it's not due to watering, it's due to not enough light. When your plants rot, whether it's an orchid or anything else, I have a section on overwatering in my book Houseplant Warrior, because everybody talks about overwatering, but you have to you have to water. So what I like to say is I like to water all of my plants' roots because I care about all of the roots. I don't just care about some of them. So I always thoroughly water. But if you have really low light, if you're not providing enough light, then you might be running into an issue. So in order to not tiptoe on, not watering, being scared to water enough, think about it, throw that out the window and say, am I providing enough light for my plant? Because most of the time, that's what the true issue is. And a lot of times people are so scared of overwatering that they go too far in the opposite direction and then they end up dehydrating their plants. So sorry, I went on. I know that was, but all of this is related, whether you're growing orchids or anything else too. You're very welcome. Um, Todd is saying I repotted in ceramic pots with holes in bark. Do you mean ceramic pots with holes in the side? Oh yeah, that's probably what you mean, I assume, right? Um, how do you know? Yes, okay. So Todd has repotted a few orchids into orchid pots that have holes on the side. So sometimes they'll have slits, sometimes they'll have holes. They make plastic pots that way, ceramic pots that way. How do you know when to repot? Um, so in general, this is what I recommend. This is what I recommend for repotting. Now, these orchid pots, these orchid pots that have holes on the side, um, they can be really good because they allow more air to the root system. And that's great for orchid roots, right? Most orchids, not all of them, but most of them are epiphytes. Phalaenopsis orchids are epiphytes. They grow on tree branches. So their roots are exposed to the air. So they benefit from the holes on the side. However, there's some cons to it. Do you need to grow orchids in orchid pots? No, you don't. It's not a strict requirement. However, what it'll do, a couple things to be aware of. Your growing medium will dry out faster because there's more airflow. So then if you increase the light, they'll dry out even more. So it becomes a watering issue more than anything. And then, some people don't like that the holes actually grow through the roots. It makes it challenging to repot. Now, to go back to your question, Todd, about how do you know when to repot? Typically, what I recommend is every 2 to 3 years, as a general rule of thumb, because what happens is over time, your bark or your sphagnum moss, whatever you're using, absorbs fertilizer, right? So you'll have an accumulation of fertilizer salts. You'll have accumulation of minerals from, excuse me, if you're using tap water. So all that accumulates. And then over time, the potting medium will also break down because of that too. And all of those things are not good for the roots. So if the potting medium breaks down, then the roots will suffocate and they'll start to rot. Um, so it's better to get ahead of that a little bit before you see the plants start to suffer. So if you can repot every 2 to 3 years at the most, then it would be a good thing for your orchids. But again, one thing to be aware of too is if you're using a bark mix. Now, if anybody likes, I know some people on this call use the Treehouse mix, which I absolutely love. That one's an exception. But most bark mixes are so dry that when people repot, the plants, the Phalaenopsis orchids suddenly will start to get wrinkly leaves because most bark mixes are super, super, super dry. So that's why I always recommend soaking it overnight and then increasing the frequency of watering after repotting for most bark mixes, not the Treehouse mix, because that one is actually evening things out pretty well. So it absorbs more water than most bark mixes, but not as much as sphagnum moss. So it's a nice happy medium, pun intended. Um, for that. So there's a lot of things to be aware of. Um, let's see. A couple more questions here, and then if you have any more, I can probably take maybe one or two more. I just wanted to make one more my special announcement at the end. Gia says I repotted to mostly bark with a little soil, perlite, and moss, but the pots are a lot bigger than the roots. Okay. The roots coming out of the pot are drying up, but I am doing more than enough watering. I'm starting to scale back. So it depends on how you're watering. I'm not sure how you're watering. Um, I'm guessing you might not be watering thoroughly enough. That's my guess, but I'd have to know what method of watering that you're using. So if you want to.
So, sure. So I didn't realize that by not having a pot that's just slightly smaller than the roots, there's more medium, and then then it can absorb more and then cause root rot. So I think I'm sorry to say that I'm on my second round of repotting because of some of that.
That's okay.
And I think maybe what you said is true, that now because I did the bark, like some of the roots that I left kind of coming out the top are like shriveling, but then because there's so much media, it's getting way too wet. So I put a space heater on it. My husband's laughing and I have paper towels on it and I'm like, oh no. So I'm trying to figure it out, but I feel like I have to have what I have because I have like 25 of these and I'm trying not to repot again.
Yeah. Okay. So you bring up a very common thing. So Phalaenopsis orchids, or most orchids actually, they like to stay pretty tight. So when you repot, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're always going to go up a pot size. You only want to go up a pot size if you need to, if you need more room. So if you can see that, if you take your orchid out of the pot, or if it's in a clear plastic pot and you can see the roots and there's a ton of roots, then yes, go up one pot size, but only one pot size. Don't go crazy. So if it's in a 4-inch pot, go up to a 6-inch pot diameter at the most. However, if the root system is damaged and you're repotting and you can fit it back in the same size pot comfortably, do it. Because you don't want so much medium that, like you mentioned, Gia, it could very well stay wet for way too long, and that can cause the roots to rot. So it's all about a balance, for sure. Does that help?
But what do I do now since they're already in here? I already bought them. They're the ones with the holes in them. I
Okay.
am going to put them under the grow lights, which I think will help tremendously.
Yeah.
But other than that and limiting the watering, like, is there anything else I can do now to keep them in where they already are?
Without repotting?
Yeah,
And how many do you have? How many?
like 25.
Oh, okay. See, this is why I recommended a few minutes ago. If you make any changes, do it slowly. Do one or two, but that's okay because that's how we learn. It's okay. So how big of a pot are we talking about?
They're the 4.5-inch pots. And then even though the plants themselves are big, I think I lost some roots and they just don't have, some just don't have huge root systems.
Okay, I think I'm gonna have to, because we're running out of time soon. I want
Okay.
to make sure I'm answering these questions. I'm putting my email in the chat. Email me in detail your watering process, the lighting, and then details of the mix that you use, and I can help you out.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Okay, James, I'm sorry, before Laura, and then I'll do
Yeah,
the rest of the questions. Laura's saying when doubling the lights, you get a higher reading in foot candles. Does it affect the Kelvin too? No. So the Kelvin is actually the temperature of the light. So regardless of that,
1, 2, 5 doesn't matter.
it stays the same. So if you get a light that's 4000 K or 4000 Kelvin, that's what it is. But if you add more of those lights, you're just increasing the intensity, but the temperature will stay the same.
Okay, good. Thanks.
Oh, you're welcome. Is there a link or source for the Treehouse mix? Yes, I'm actually, yes, let me, hang on one second. I can provide that. Bear with me. Let me see if I have, hang on one second. I will share that with you. Let me send this. I'm gonna have to airdrop this to my, so they only ship to the United States. Here's the link. Here's the link. I put it in the chat. And you can use code, if it didn't apply the coupon code, because I work closely with the company, you should get 10% off. It's a wonderful mix. So I really, really like that one. Okay, one more question, and then I have my last thing I wanted to mention. MV is mentioning one of my orchids has a dry root coming out of the pot at the bottom 3 weeks after I got them. Do I need to repot or just water more often? I was giving 1.5 tablespoons of water per week. Okay. I would throw that recommendation out the window. Don't use the 1.5 tablespoons of water. Is it growing in bark or is it in moss? So you can put that in the chat or just unmute. You can let me know. In moss. Okay. Okay. I wouldn't measure it. I wouldn't measure it. I would just take your plant to the sink, give it a good thorough watering, just with a watering can. Let everything drain out. Moss can drain a little bit slowly. So keep it there a few minutes, let it drain, and then you should be fine. Make sure you're giving it enough light. Though, and it doesn't necessarily mean that just because you have a root coming out that it needs to be repotted. Although if you have exposed roots, you're very welcome. If you have any exposed roots, that's totally normal. Sometimes it's an indication that the potting mix is starting to go bad, and that it might want, you know, a fresh repotting. But it's natural for these orchids to grow that way. That's totally natural. So what I would do, whenever you water your plants, if you have any roots that are exposed, go ahead and water the exposed roots too, either, you know, with the watering can or misting the roots, in order to keep them hydrated so that you're not dehydrating the roots. That's really important too. All right. So I have one last thing that I wanted to mention, and let me grab this link for anyone that is interested. So I have not announced this yet, but since you all are on this call, I know I have some course members on my call here, but this is actually, I'm going to be announcing this on my social media shortly, maybe next week or so, for my Black Friday. Oh, the concoctions. I'm sorry, James. I'll come back to my announcement. So James was mentioning, so if anybody's been using, you know, banana peel water, rice water, garlic, all that stuff, honestly, I've never used those types of things. I just like to use a good fertilizer. Because I think what'll happen is if you use organic things like that, like banana peels, stuff like that, you might end up attracting ants and pests. And I mean, I don't want to be using garlic water, you know, stuff like that. And you'll have a stinky growing area and you might be attracting pests. So can it work? I mean, it can't really hurt other than the pest part, but I prefer to use a good formulated fertilizer, because it'll have everything that your plants need in order to grow. Oh, you're welcome, James. Okay. Back to my quick announcement here, then we'll wrap up the call. So this is actually my Black Friday special. If anybody is interested in taking my course, this is actually my Black Friday deal that I have not announced yet on Instagram. It'll be available for the rest of the month, actually until the end of the day, December 1st. So what I did here was, you know, I know for a lot of people, it's nothing for the one-time payment. But some people said, you know, I can't quite afford it yet. So it's just another option. So what I did was my offer it's the exact same program. You get the course, you get my private Facebook group where course members post and ask any questions. I respond to everybody. And I do monthly Q&A calls, similar to this. So it's basically $10 a month for a year. And then the payments stop and, you know, you keep everything. I keep going with the calls, you keep the course, you can access the course, as many times as you want to come back. I see Rob, nodding his head there. He's in my course. And I also believe in support because yes, you know, I put, you know, almost 3 hours of content inside of the course. And it lives in Kajabi. So you just, you know, you create your login, you can come back anytime you want. I also have supportive PDF files as well that have more illustrations. But I also believe in ongoing support because of questions and because that's how we all learn. You're very welcome, Sherry. You're very welcome, everybody. So that's why I do the Facebook group, and people post questions and photos all the time. I respond back to everybody. And I do monthly calls. So it really helps along with the learning process if you want to learn how to grow orchids in the most efficient way possible. That's what I would recommend. So I wanted to share that with you now before I announce it on social media. But that deal will be available for through the end of the day, December 1st, Eastern Standard Time. So if you're interested, the link is here, right here in the chat. I put it there again. You're very welcome, anybody. Any other questions? If I have a few more minutes, if anybody has, bye Rob. If anybody has any other questions, I'm happy to answer anything that I didn't address.
Not about the lights, but you talk about your blog. You send me emails, but is the blog the same thing as the email? I'm not
It
really
is.
on the computer.
Yeah, that's my website. Yeah.
That is the same one because I'm not on Facebook or any of those, so I can't get any of that other stuff.
Okay, yeah. So yes. So the blog is so any announcements that I if you're if you've opted in also to if you're in the course and you opted into the to receive marketing. So I put, I send all the recordings out as well. You can always email me if something got missed. And I'm happy to provide anything you need.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Judith, you've misplaced the sign in. I can reset the passcode for you right after this call. And let me just take a quick, I'm just gonna make a quick note here so I don't forget. So just look in your email. You'll get an email from Ohio Tropics Resources, and then you can just reset your password that way.
She missed the call.
Very welcome. Any other questions?
What does she mean? She misplaced the sign in. What does she need to sign in for the?
She signed up. She had signed up for my course. She took the course, but she forgot her login.
Okay. I have your
yeah,
course too. So all right. I'll have to make sure I still have it. Okay, I was just wondering. I told you I'm not real good with computers.
You're welcome. No problem. Rob, did you have a question?
Just make sure that they look for the epiphyte medium. It doesn't say orchid mix on the Treehouse.
Thank you. Yes. So it's actually the Treehouse mix. It's Treehouse tropical epiphyte. I'm putting it in tropical epiphyte blend, maybe. So I spoke with the owner of the company, and she's actually going to modify the label to include that so that people know. So it's not, you can actually use it for other types of epiphytes, but it is the Treehouse tropical epiphyte blend is the name on the site for that. It's a wonderful, it's a great mix. It's a great mix for Phalaenopsis.
Good for dischidias too.
Yeah, you can definitely.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
My anthurium, I got them in all of that.
Oh, awesome. That's great. That's great. Okay. So unless there's any other questions, thank you for joining. I hope you found the call useful, and good luck with your grow lights. Let me know if you have any questions. You know where to find me. And if you're in the course, you get a lot more support as well. So have a good rest of the day, everybody, and I'll talk to everybody later.
Thank you.
You're very welcome, everybody. Thank you. Thank you for joining. Bye-bye.
Bye.